and welcome to Thoughtfully Fit Thursday. I'm Darcy Loma, and I have a special guest today that I want to personally hijack the entire conversation and have it be about me because I am the parent of two teenage daughters. I'm going to resist the urge to do that, however, and introduce you to Jennifer Kolari, who is one of the nation's leading parenting experts. She is a sought-after international speaker, and she's the founder of Connected Parenting. What I find most fascinating is that Jennifer is all about being able to help parents connect with their kids using compassion and empathy as a powerful medicine. And so I'm going to invite you, Jennifer, to just introduce yourself and tell us, how did you get to be a parenting expert? What's your story?
Question. Okay. So yes. So I'm a social worker. I mean, that's what I love. And that's been my job for over 30 years. And I guess what really defined it is after I finished my undergraduate degree, before I went on and did my postgraduate work and became a therapist, I ended up working at this group home for street kids. So these were kids who were on the streets of Toronto. They were basically sex trafficked. They had what are called Romeo pimps. So these are men and older boys who pretended to love them and then basically put them to work. So we're talking about girls who'd been sexually traumatized, physically abused, sexually abused, deep trauma. And they came to this home, and our job was to kind of keep them safe for a few weeks until they were placed in a more permanent setting. And the advice we were given, or the training we were given, was to be really tough with these kids and don't turn your back on them, and give an inch, take a mile, and don't be soft, they'll walk all over you. And especially at night when the makeup came off and the jammies came on and the teddy bears came out, they were babies, they were children. Some of them were as young as 11 years old, if you can imagine. So I did not see anything but kids. And so at night, where they're the most vulnerable, when it was time to just shut the door and say goodnight, I spent some time with them. So I would sit on their beds and rub their backs, and I would sing them lullabies, and I would tell them bedtime stories. And these children would melt into the warmth of that. And you could see in their faces they'd never had that. And how could I not give that, first of all? But here's what I noticed. The next day, when it was time for me to get the kids to do the things I needed them to do in that home and follow through the routines, they were much more likely to do it for me. So there was definitely an increase in trust and compliance. And the other staff were like, what's she doing? And how come they're listening to her? And then it was, oh, this is going to backfire. They're going to walk all over her. They're going to take advantage of her. And honestly, they didn't. That connection was so powerful. And I'll very quickly tell the story, which I always tell, but there was one little girl who was really challenging behaviorally. She'd only been there for a short time, and she particularly loved the bedtime routine. And she was actually leaving. She was going off with her social worker to be placed in a different setting. And she kind of paused before she got in the car, and she came running back up the sidewalk to the porch where I was standing. She put her hands on my cheeks and she looked in my eyes and she said, I just want to remember this face, the face of someone who actually cared about me. And so that moment was so profound, because I realized that's all it takes to just really touch someone, to give them some idea that you're seen and heard, and that you matter, and that people see your pain and they see beyond your behavior. It was powerful. And that was the moment I realized, okay, I want to bring this to my work. I want to make this part of what I learn about and study and understand. And I want to find a way to bring this to the world and bring this to families. And that's what I did. So I went back to school and did more training, and really started to dive deep into a particular kind of therapy called self-psychology. And I sort of took my own spin, my own twist on the concept of mirroring and attunement, which we can dive into in a moment, and how to use that as medicine. So language and compassion is medicine that does phenomenal things in the body and has a profound impact on behavior, on social and emotional regulation, on happiness, on learning, and on physical and mental health. So it's huge. It really is.
And so in preparing for this, I was really intrigued reading about all of your work and your background and your history. And one of the terms that I was reading talked about the neurobiology of love. Is that, can you share, is that what you're talking about?
That's what I'm talking about. Yep. So, and before I kind of dive into that, I want people to understand that human beings, we only really have two emotions, basically: love and fear. So anger and jealousy and gossip and bitterness and shouting and all of that, everything else falls under the category of fear. And so when you are able to line up with love, and we can feel the difference in our bodies, and we'll talk about that in a moment. And when you operate from a place of love versus fear, particularly as a parent, it's going to be incredibly powerful. So love itself is, I don't even know if you'd call it an emotion. It is just it's a universal language. We all understand it. We all crave it. We all need it. It is fuel next to food and water. Maybe even not even next to food and water. I might even put love first. It's essential to healthy human development and to functioning. So, and what happens is when you feel love in your body, and there's various degrees of love, and pretty amazing things happen biochemically. So when you're feeling listened to and loved and understood and appreciated, oxytocin is going to flow. Oxytocin is a very powerful hormone / neurotransmitter, and it does some pretty amazing things in the body. It strengthens the immune system. What could be more important in our world right now than that? It speeds up neuroplasticity. If you're a parent, you want your kid to learn better, smarter, faster. It's a cortisol blocker. So oxytocin is an inhibitor of cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone that makes us anxious, that gives us anxiety, that makes our heart race, that makes us fly off the handle and get angry. And it's tapped into the kind of security system of the brain, and oxytocin actually mitigates that. It's free. You don't need a prescription. You can't overdose on it. There are no negative side effects. And the best part of all is that when you interact with other humans this way, this is beyond parenting, you get the same bounce back. So you get all of those same amazing chemicals flowing through your body. So that is neurobiology, or actually psychoneurobiology, that really affects our biochemistry. And just as an aside, in our culture, we have wildly confused pleasure and happiness. Those are two very, very different things in very different parts of the brain, and very different biochemicals are released. So pleasure usually comes from, anything we do for pleasure usually releases dopamine. And dopamine is a very important biochemical, but it's very connected to addiction. So when you get that pleasure, you need more of that thing the next time to get the same thrill that you got the last time. And you end up seeking pleasure, which actually disconnects you from true happiness. So serotonin and oxytocin, which are known as the here and now chemicals, those release in moments of deep connection, snuggling, cuddling, supporting each other, helping, volunteering, fixing something for someone, watching a show together, board games. Happiness comes from connection that way. And in our culture right now, we're all stuck to our phones and, disconnected in many ways. And our children are growing up this way. It's not going to change. We have to learn to live with it. But in order to do that, we need to balance it out with those really important happiness chemicals. And that comes from connection. It also comes from compassion, from empathy, and from parenting, or just being with another human being from a place of love instead of fear.
Which I'm curious, it sounds like so right as you're sharing, and so magical. And yet, what about the parents out there who might say, yeah, but you don't know my kids? Or even those colleagues who said, wait, what? You come in, you got to be tough. You need to set boundaries and expectations. Doesn't that sort of create a negative correlation to expectations and rules and discipline?
Yeah. And it's something I come up with a lot. That's probably one of the biggest questions that people have. Like, if I'm all doing all this compassion and I'm being so understanding, am I letting them get away with something? Are they going to be really tough? And here's the thing: in order to set really solid limits, in order to be a good parent, you have to be able to set limits, loving limits. You have to be consistent. They have to be predictable, and you have to be fairly neutral about it. The minute you start screaming and yelling, you're parenting from fear, so it's not going to work. And in order to do that, guess what you have to have? Connection. If you don't have the connection, you're just mean. If you have the connection, then your child is like, oh yeah. So the other part of connected parenting, which is really important, it's not all about just compassion and empathy. It's about, here, the best way I can explain, I got to talk about the brain briefly. So you got your frontal lobe, right? That's the part of the brain that organizes, prioritizes, mitigates, inhibits behavior, takes perspective, shifts attention, all of that stuff. Takes 25 years to grow that part of your brain. 25 years, and probably beyond, probably into your 30s. Then you have your midbrain. That's the part of the brain that is very basic. It only cares about danger, safety, and survival. That's it. It cannot tell the difference between your child who has not listened to you 4 times in a row about leaving their backpack in the front hall when you trip on it, and a saber-toothed tiger chasing you down the street. If you are angry, if you are tensed up, if you are breathing, if you're like doing this, your brain thinks, uh-oh, she's under attack. Launch the survival program in the brain, and you start screaming and you start yelling, or you start crying, or you start begging, or whatever we do as parents, because parenting is so hard. So here's what I need parents to understand. You're not parents. You are substitute frontal lobes. That's what you are. Your job is to organize, prioritize, motivate. And so what happens with parents is they think, you say something once to your kid, they should listen. You're providing a brain function. You are their frontal lobe. And every year that they get older, you get to back off just a little bit as their own frontal lobe begins to take over. So when they're babies, you are regulating for them. When they're little, you are co-regulating with them. When they're teenagers, you're still co-regulating, but you're panning back a little bit. You're giving them a little bit more control, because teenagers are all about independence and sovereignty and freedom. And then when they're adults, you're just there, for as an elder giving guidance. And then they have their own kids, and they're the frontal lobe to them. And that's kind of how it works. So in order to be a really good, solid, predictable parent, you have to have the foundation of that connection. And I've found in the parenting world, it swings. It's either all about compassion and empathy and being very aware and conscious of things. But then a lot of kids, and this is what's so unique about connected parenting, I think our niche is what I call gladiator kids. And they're the feisty, sassy, no, why should I? You're mean. You're not the boss of me, which more and more kids are coming into this world with this strong sense of self, and they're going to be phenomenal adults. They're going to be the people that save us all. I'm not kidding. I don't even mean that sarcastically. They're going to have to figure stuff out. And in order to do that, you got to push through boundaries, and you have to challenge paradigms, but you have to help that little person grow into themselves, because they've got bigger feelings than their little bodies can hold, into a world where people can listen, where they're not alienating people, where they're not, where they're able to work in a group, where they're able to show good leadership. And those are the toughest kids to parent, right? And then the other type of parenting is the 1, 2, 3 magic, which is great, but it's all about behavior mod, which if you have a gladiator kid, most of the parents that I work with, honestly, it's like a lot of the beautiful parenting advice works really well on other kids, or maybe even their other kids. But not on their gladiator. It does not work. And what I'm the most proud of is this works. This works on your sassy, feisty, strong-willed, the child that has a really strong counter will. And it's done with such love and such respect, but such strength. So the two sides of connected parenting are coming from a place of love and neutrality in a really strong way. Compassion, empathy, understanding that behavior is never the problem. Behavior is a symptom of the problem, right? Then creating that strong structural connection to your child, so that when you have to say, I'm sorry, I love you enough for you to be mad at me. Be as mad at you as you want, but you're losing your phone. Yell and scream if you want to, but I'm doing my job. I'm your frontal lobe. It's having that.
Were you at my house last night?
I'm in a lot of people's houses. Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like that's just going to come up, and your kids need you to be that strong kind of oak tree, I call it, because they know they don't have a fully formed frontal lobe of their own. But if you're screaming, you know what? That's it. You've lost your phone. And now you've lost this. And blah, blah, blah. If it comes out that way, you're crazy and you're mean. That's all they see.
Which is interesting, because one of the other things I was reading about, you talked about calm, and I'm wondering if it feels as you're sharing, like staying this, not getting triggered, staying calm, staying centered and grounded, and delivering those consequences with love and compassion. Mm-hmm. I'm not hearing you say don't deliver the consequences.
Oh no, the consequences are essential to good mental health and physical health. It's critical, actually. You need to be a frontal lobe. That's your job. How you do it, though, is really important. And that is where the calm technique comes in. And I want to say right off the bat, and the other thing I'm really proud of is I want to be really honest with people. You are going to lose it. I lose it. We're human. That's what happens sometimes when you're not nice to somebody. People lose it. That's how it works. So you get to repair. So what I love about the calm technique is you can also go back and go, remember yesterday when I told you to go live with the neighbors? I didn't actually stop and think about how important that party was to you, or how important whatever was to you. And you come back, you can do do-overs, right? Mm-hmm. Which is also very powerful. So let's break down the calm technique. So calm technique is my spin on a therapy technique. And I want to stress that you're not born knowing how to do this in a very clinical way. I've taken it and I've kind of broken it down into a way that I think people can apply it to everyday life. And by the way, this doesn't just work on your kids. It works on nasty neighbors, mother-in-laws, siblings, coworkers, bosses. It is literally a superpower. It is a communication superpower that will change your life and give you a lot more confidence in terms of conflict, because we're terrified of conflict often. And either we avoid it altogether or we overreact, right? And we start reacting from a place of fear instead of love. So it is a superpower. And the advantage is when you get good at this, you don't have to teach your kids how to do it. They're living this way. Yeah. You're talking to them this way, and they will naturally and intuitively carry that forward in their own life. So it is a gift you give yourself, you give your children and your children's children. That's literally. So let's break down calm. So there are 4 things. Actually, before I do that, I want people to know instinctively, we all know how to do this, right? Nobody picks up a baby and goes, well, you're crying, you need to stop. Like, nobody does that. You pick up a baby and you go, oh my goodness, look at you. Baby doesn't know what you're saying, but the baby sees on your face a perfect neurological reflection of what they're feeling, which then stimulates the the mirror neuron cells actually in the brain, releasing oxytocin, serotonin, natural opiates and endorphins, beautiful, what are called reward chemicals. And we do this quite naturally until our children acquire language. So right around the time of language acquisition, we start to change it. So the best example I can give is, let's say you have a 4-month-old baby, they're fussing and crying because you've taken them out of the bath. Nobody says, this is ridiculous. You're 4 months old. You've had a bath every single night. It's always gone fine. No one does that with a baby. You look at a baby and you go, I know you're cold and this towel's scratchy, and they don't know what you're saying, but they're immediately biochemically soothed by the connection. Over time, that starts to strengthen the brain and build neural pathways around, okay, this world's a bit weird. Things happen that I don't understand, but this person keeps showing up. She seems to know what she's doing, or he seems to know what she's doing. He seems to get me. So I'm actually okay. Creating neural pathways in the brain that tell the brain they're safe. Once the brain knows they're safe, now they can take risks. Now they can explore. Now they can challenge boundaries. Now they can figure out how to be a human being. But that connection is critical. So most of us are pretty good at this. You don't need lessons on how to talk to a baby. However, what do you do then when your 2-year-old won't get out of the bath, or they're crying because you've taken them out? Stop it. This is ridiculous. You're not going to have your bedtime story. And look at your brother. He's already in his pajamas. And why can't you just ever lose? That's what starts to happen. And we're exhausted and we're tired. And it's exhausting being our own frontal lobe. Okay. Never mind other people's frontal lobes. So we're tired, right? And there's a lot of mixed messaging. And I love the messaging for parents that you have to be aware and conscious and know your triggers and know your stuff. But that actually puts so much pressure on a lot of parents. Is really, so now on top of this, I have to do this. I have to be so aware. But what I want people to understand is when you invest in this, your life changes.
Mm.
The children's behavior changes. You start to become more confident, more proud of your parenting, or when you blow it, you know exactly what to do. So when people say to me, oh, I don't have time for this. I don't have time for this. My answer is you don't have time not to.
Not to.
That's the truth. You're going to put the energy in one way or another. You're either going to be chasing your kid around upstairs going, get into bed. This is ridiculous. Or you're going to put it in at the beginning where you're spending that extra time saying, you know what? I get it. This is the most, put your hand in the bath. Oh, it's so warm. Who would want to get out of this bath when it's so warm? And you know, you got to get cold and then you got to get dressed. You got to do a whole bunch of things, plus go to bed, which you don't even want to do in the first place. Now they're nodding. Now they're like, yes, mommy. Yes, daddy. Now they understand. Now you have oxytocin flowing. Now you have serotonin flowing, taking that brain out of fight or flight and into an oxytocin-based response instead of an adrenaline or cortisol-based reaction. It is that simple. It's that complicated, but it's that simple. And so people who follow my work, who I work with, honestly, my favorite part is people saying, I can't believe it. I can't recognize my child, where things are so different. It's so different. It's so calm. It's so full of love. And when it isn't, because there's life happens, stuff happens, you have a whole toolbox. You know what to do. You know how to address every situation with compassion, with courage, and with confidence.
Wow. It almost makes me think of the dog whisperer, and you'd watch this.
The child whisperer.
Child whisperer, right?
Especially the teen whisperer. So should we break it down, the 4 things that you do?
Yes.
Okay, so the first thing you're going to do with the calm technique is you're going to connect. Now, this is really important if you're multitasking, if you've got a phone in your hand, if you have something else that you're doing. You really have to be present, right? Which means eye contact, turning towards your child, putting your own agenda, which is, are you kidding me? I have 5 other things to do right now. And how dare you speak to me that way? And why would I care what you think when you just treated your brother that way? Take all of that, put it over here. I'll even give you some tools on how to do that, and make yourself present in that moment with your child. So connection is first, and taking your agenda and suspending it. You get to bring it back, but you have to suspend it. The A stands for affect matching. So the look on your face needs to match the look on their face. If they are sad and you look angry, if they are panicky and you look angry, if they're sad. So if you have a child who, I always give this example, I think it's a cute one. If you have a little kid, for example, who comes home and says, oh, I thought Jillian, they're 5. I thought Jillian loved me and it turns out she loves Josh. If you start smiling because that's the cutest thing you've ever heard, that is not going to match what they're saying. If your teenager is like, look at my hair, look at it, I can't go to school like this, it's awful. And you're like, what are you talking about? It looks beautiful. There's no match. So the only place they can go is up. Look, you're not seeing it. Look, they start to escalate. The more they escalate, the more we try to go, stop it, calm down. There's people in the world, you know, who don't, they're privileged to go to school. They don't care how they look when they go. We start this whole thing. And all that happens is there's this clash. Right?
Yeah.
So we want to biochemically calm that person down. So if we take the hair fit, for example, instead of saying it's beautiful, you look great, what are you talking? No, you have to say that. You're my mother. And up it goes, right? You take a minute and you go, first of all, you don't want to hear this, but I think your hair looks beautiful, but I know you, and you have a very specific way that you want your hair to look, and something's not working about the way you've been trying. It looks like you've done it 14 times with the hair straightener and it's still not working. See my urgency? See what's happening?
Yeah.
And now there's nowhere to go. I don't have to, as a child, I don't have to convince my mother anymore or my father anymore. It takes time. It takes bravery. It takes courage. But if you can do it, you will bust a tantrum, whether it's a 5-year-old or a 15-year-old, in 3 to 4 statements. You don't have to lie your child down and do a whole therapy session. It's literally 3 or 4 accurate, authentic. This is important. If you're doing it to get your kid to stop, so you can get in the car, it's never going to work. That's why the suspend word is really important. You have to channel your inner 15-year-old, or channel your inner 5-year-old who just built a Lego tower and it fell down. And you have to find a way to join them in the place of like, okay, this isn't happening to me. I don't quite get it, but I can see for you, this is huge right now. That kind of urgency, right? So that's the affect matching. The next letter is L. So this is where you listen. So this is where you can paraphrase, you can summarize, you can clarify, or you can wonder out loud. So let's use the hair fit because we threw that out there. So you can summarize, you know what? I honestly, I love you and I think you look beautiful all the time, but this is literally the 4th time this week that your hair just seems to do its own thing no matter what you do. You wet it, it's still the same. See that urgency? Now it's not, oh my God, your hair's not working. That's terrible. Now it's happening to me and I'm embarrassed about her hair and that's never going to work. That's going to be 100 times worse. If it's like, this is ridiculous. It's in your head. It looks exactly the same as it did. No, it doesn't look exactly the same. Now you're going to have a huge escalation, right? So it's not about agreeing. It's about getting. And that's where you get that chemical release that we're talking about. That's where those beautiful reward chemicals come in and do their thing and calm your child down. And over time, see, this is just the bonus, by the way. De-escalating somebody is just the bonus. When you interact with people all the time, you don't have to wait for your kid to have a hair fit to talk to them this way. It could be telling you anything about anything. You're using the same technique. Now you're constantly releasing oxytocin and the other reward chemicals, which literally medicates them over time, building emotional resilience, which is the greatest gift you can give your child. And by the way, you can't give it without having it yourself, right? So it's what you're also doing is modeling that you can step out of yourself and truly be there for another person. And then at the end of the day, if your child is hurling insults at you or swearing at you, you say, look, I love you and I get the whole hair thing, but I like myself way too much to be treated this way. And you've called me a this and a that. And so what? If you call me that again, I'm just letting you know your phone is gone for 24 hours. That's it. So now you're making a choice. Shut up. I hate you. Well, now it's gone. Not give me that phone. You hurt my, like it has to be like, right. And don't try to grab it out of their hand.
Right.
Wait till they're asleep or wait till later or tell them it's either you put it on the counter in 15 minutes or 20 minutes. That's my favorite technique. Give them, because when you stand over them, a gladiator will never do what you want. In 20 minutes, I need that phone. Even do it by text if it's a teenager. That phone needs to be on the counter. If that's the case, you'll only lose it for 24 hours. If you don't, it's 48. And then you call Verizon or Rogers or whoever your phone thing is. You say, hi, I'm sorry, we've lost our phone. Can you suspend the account? And the account's gone, or you wait till they're asleep and then you take it. And they're, I hate you. You took my phone. You know what? You had an opportunity to make a different choice. You decided to call me this, this, and this, and you can mirror. I get it. I would hate that too as a teenager. That's your phone. Everything's in there, everything that you need. But you had a choice to stop calling me that name, and you chose to keep calling me that name, and this is your consequence. Right? And when it's delivered that way, you'll get some slamming doors. But eventually over time, they'll figure it out and then they won't do that behavior in the first place. It is so much more effective than yelling. There's so many people who believe that yelling is really the only way to get a message across. It is never the way. Have you ever been yelled at, reprimanded, and screamed at, and you're going,
it's horrible.
But have you ever gone like this? Oh, I'm so glad that thank you. That was awesome. Oh my gosh, I never saw. No, you're going to get defensive. You're going to get angry, and you're going to focus on their behavior instead of your behavior, right? And when you do yell, because you will, because we all do, just know that just can't be your primary parenting technique. You go back and you say, okay, remember yesterday when I lost it? Took some time and I really tried to put myself in your shoes, and then you mirror. And it actually gives you time to come up with a great statement too.
And so what does the M stand for?
I don't know if I finished. I think that was clarifying mirroring, right? So you go, that was summarizing. I can clarify. I can say, what part of your hair what part is driving you crazy? You pick a detail, right? This is also really effective for gifted kids, for highly sensitive kids. If you just pick a detail rather than an emotion, sometimes you're reflecting back the emotion. They'll go, stop it, stop saying what I'm saying. So you just pick a detail. You can paraphrase. So she says, I have the stupidest hair in the world. It never does what I want. You just paraphrase that. You say, so you've got hair that like on one day looks like this, on another day looks like that. You're just kind of spinning it, saying the same thing back, but not exactly. You can wonder out loud. So it might be you do the whole mirroring about the hair, and then you say, I wonder if this also has something to do with not getting invited to that party, right? Or breaking up with your boyfriend or whatever it is. You can link it back to what might really be.
And that mirroring, I'm assuming, then makes them feel connected.
And then they'll tell you. Your kids will talk to you this way. right? And the other piece is, okay. And then, so that's the 4 things you do. And then the M really just stands for mirroring. When you kind of pulled those things all together, you've had a good mirroring moment. And what you've done is you've listened deeply. You've had a moment of deep connection. You've seen through the noise and you've gone right to the heart of what their message is. Now, and you haven't made it about you. Because sometimes what happens is we think, oh my God, here we go. There's going to be a hairfoot for half an hour. She's going to be late for school. She's got a test. This is ridiculous. We start parenting from a place of fear ourselves, and we want them to behave better so we can feel better, which never works. Or if they're really sad about something, it's so difficult for us as a parent to watch our child suffer that way that we want to just go into cheerleading mode and fix it, which also won't work. But mostly, if you can be neutral and loving, then your children will come back and they will talk to you. They will tell you things. They will share things with you, and you'll have the tools to handle it. So it doesn't matter how old your kids are. If your kids are teens, you can start this now. If your kids are little, you'll be great at it by the time that they are teenagers. But it is child whispering. It is teen whispering.
There's elements of it that sound similar to Love and Logic.
Yes. The only thing I would say, which is lovely, the only thing I would say is the mirroring technique itself sounds simple, but there are no observational statements. It is not active listening. If you say things like, I understand, this must be very difficult for you. I see that you're having a really hard time, especially with a gladiator, forget it. You don't know. Don't tell me you understand. You don't understand. It's incredibly important that it is an affect-based technique. So no observational statements. I call it it's a difference between, and I'm not saying Love and Logic is this. I'm lumping in a number of techniques where you use active listening or empathic listening, which is a very lovely technique. But I'm talking about in moments of high escalation, especially with sassy counter will gladiator type of kids, they will not tolerate that. Right. If you say, I understand, I can see you're having, no, you don't. Like, it'll actually inflame them. Right. So it has to be without the observational statement. And that takes practice. This sounds easy, but it's not so easy. This is why we have people that are doing deep dives with us to get really good at it. But it's so worth it. It's so worth it.
Oh my gosh. Everything you're saying, it's like powerful, Jennifer. And I want to stay on for the rest of the day because my mind is coming up with so many questions. I'm going to ask just one. I said at the beginning I would self-manage, but I'm actually not going to because just last night I had a situation with one of my daughters, and I think I handled most everything well. And I just said, okay, I won't tell the full story, but at the end of it, I said, that's fine if that's your choice. But let me just say, if in the morning this is the case, then I get your phone for a week. And fine, right? And she storms out. So in the morning, what she was supposed to have done wasn't done. And so later in the day, I said, because I hadn't seen her all day, I said, I need your phone.
Well, then she
went and got it and she gave it to me. She knew. She didn't complain. She didn't storm. I think the error that I made, though, is I said a week.
Okay, I was just going to say that. Here's the thing that I want parents to hear. Taking things, and you have to make sure that the consequence really equally fits whatever it is, right? So if it's too big, it's mean and it's not going to have the impact that you want. If it's too small, then it's like, oh, that's worth it, right? So this is not easy, but finding a consequence that is really natural and makes a lot of sense. So what I always say to parents, take things away for 24 to 48 hours. That's it. Then here's the thing. They may still do that thing and lose the phone again. They may still lose it for a week, but it's because they're not doing what they need to do, right? When it's 24 to 48 hours, it has just enough impact, but you're constantly either reinforcing or rewarding the behavior. Cool, you didn't do that in 24 hours. Here you go. Here's your phone back. Behavior comes back. Oh no, it's happening again. Here's the deal. When you do this, you lose your phone for 24 hours. That's what I would do. And you can go back and repair. You can go, you know what I was thinking about? How old's your daughter?
15.
You can go back and repair and go, you know what? I was thinking about it. And upon reflection, I think maybe a week was too much. And I do respect that you gave it to me. And I do appreciate it. But I think what I'm going to do from now on is it's going to be 24 to 48. If the behavior doesn't disappear, if this keeps going, it may very well have to be a week or longer. But I think this makes more sense. And then it also shows them you're reflecting, you're thinking about it, you're understanding who they are and where they are in their development.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like my angel right now, because I was feeling so stuck. Like I knew I misspoke. And part of the reason I gave a really big consequence was because this is a pattern over and over. And I wanted it to stick. And I thought for sure she would do what she was supposed to if she knew it was a week.
Yeah.
And when she didn't, it was like,
okay, so then you have two options. You can go back and do the repair, like I said, and then but give her the reasoning. Here's the reason. And you always want to tap into your child's integrity. Okay. I know you can do this. You care about so many things. So many things are so important to you. And I wouldn't ask this of you if I didn't know that you could do it. I believe in you. I know that you can do whatever it is you're asking her to do. And the reason I said a week was because I do know you can do it. And I wanted you to learn. But upon reflection, it might have been too much. But here's the deal. It's going to be 24, 48, whatever you decide. But if this pattern continues, it is going to be a week. And that will be your choice. Because a phone is a privilege, not a right. It's a privilege. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this is so golden. I have to ask you then, as we close out, because I don't want to end, where can we get more of you?
Sure. Okay. So there's a number of ways. So there's my podcast, the Connected Parenting Podcast, which is I try to do weekly, but I don't quite make it weekly because I'm super busy. But that's a great way. And I really take you through in-depthly a lot of different things. It's jam-packed. I really want people to have this knowledge. I have another podcast, which is called the Mental Health Comedy Podcast. I co-host it with a comedian named Ed Krasnick, and we interview some pretty well-known celebrities and entertainers about mental health, and it's very strategy based. It's tool based. We don't just talk about mental health. We tell you what to do. So that's a great one. You can go to our website, connectedparenting.com. We have a team of unbelievable people that are all trained in the method that are phenomenal. So if you want one-on-one parent coaching, support, therapy for you or for your child, we have a whole pediatric thing where we teach kids tools, right? We give them driving lessons for their brain, which they don't learn anywhere else, which is great. And then we have courses. So we have an online teen course, an online child course, which could be just videos, or there's another version of that course where you can have that course. And then I meet with everybody once a month. And it's so amazing because it's people from all over the world, literally every corner. And it's so fun to be on this call with people who are like, oh my God, like, and everyone gets each other and everyone is supportive and asking very similar questions, and most often parents of gladiators in that group. Am I missing anything? Oh, Role Play Playground, which is another fabulous thing, which we've really designed to be really affordable for people too. And that's a subscription program where people can join for a month or longer. So people who've joined nobody's quit yet. They keep going. So once a week, you meet with two Connected Parenting team members that work with the group, and everybody practices. They role play and okay, I had this issue with my teenager last night. You be the teenager. I'm going to be the parent. Let's switch it. And really in a very supportive, fun way. And if you don't want to do the role playing, just watch.
You just watch and learn.
Yeah. And people,
I love it.
So supportive and fun.
Is all of that on the Connected Parenting?
All of that is on the Connected Parenting website.
And we're going to share with all of our Thoughtfully Fit fans and listeners all of the links to these different things, because I can only imagine the overlap of the people who really want to be thoughtfully fit in their lives want to also be thoughtful parents. And what you're sharing, it's evidence research based, but also what I love, Jennifer, about what you're sharing is you're making it real, and you're recognizing that even though it's the right way to handle a situation, it's hard.
It is hard. It is hard. But honestly, it's a famous quote. I think it's from the Poisonwood Bible. You're only as happy as your saddest child. So whatever your work is, whatever your job is, whatever you're doing, you cannot do it to the best of your ability if you're worried about your family, especially your kids. Oh, and I forgot two other things. My books. I have books.
Yes, you've got books.
Yes, there's Connected Parenting, How to Raise a Great Kid. And then there's also the teen book, which is You're Ruining My Life. But not really. They're available wherever you can find books, Amazon, bookstores.
Oh my gosh. Okay. clearly ordering both of those when we are done here. I am so grateful that you took time to share these tips with us, and the level of research and compassion, the mix that you have is this beautiful, right? That you can see that your passion aligned with your research, aligned with your heart, and you're doing what you're meant to do in the world. And it's such a gift. Thank you for sharing that with us today, Jennifer.
Delightful. I enjoyed it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll put all the links in. Thank you for joining us. Happy Thoughtfully Fit Thursday.